Good morning, everybody. My name is Kristen Slice. I'm with Empowered Lab Communications, and this morning we are recording the Tales of Small Business podcast with our guest, Danielle Watson. So, good morning, Danielle.
Good morning, Kristen.
And Danielle, as you can see, is prepared with proper lighting and makeup and hair, and I do a podcast for a reason, not as good at the video piece. So, just feel free to stare at Danielle while we're talking. And she's been a real trooper this morning. I think Google On Air, the Google pieces, they're so good when they work. The technology of figuring it out is always an opportunity.
Absolutely. And well, I'm on the East Coast, so I've had a lot more hours this morning to get myself ready, just so you know.
There you go. See, I'm still into the first cup of coffee, so it might be total use of air on my behalf. Plus, my computer, not a big fan of waking up before a certain hour.
I don't blame you.
So thank you for joining me today and for going through all the technology. Do me a favor and just give a little bit of a brief introduction of who you are and what your business is to our listeners.
Yeah, so like Kristen said, I'm Danielle Watson, and I am an anthropologist. I created something called the Purse Process. Your handbag is exactly like an archaeological dig. It is just like a collection of lost treasures that somebody might find out in the desert. And so what I've done is I've taken the skill set of an archaeologist, somebody like Indiana Jones, and I've made it a lot more feminine, modern, and relevant.
Very cool. And Danielle, talk to me a little bit, and how we came across each other, and I've got a lot of questions for you, but Danielle attended the Women's Small Business Entrepreneurs Boot Camp here in Scottsdale that I was the MC for, and we sat beside each other. And one of the things that I think is just so impressive is we sat beside each other for a hot minute in that workshop, and you followed up with me on social media. You connected with me, not from across the country. You live in a different state, and yet I still feel this is probably the second time that we've chat face to face. But I feel like I know you because you're quite the whiz at social media and connection pieces. So,
thank you.
Congratulations for that.
Thank you.
And how long have you been doing your business, Danielle?
This business I've been doing less than a year.
Okay, so still kind of in that relatively new startup. Talk to me a little bit just to start the conversation. Like I said, I think you're a social media whiz. And, everybody talks about social media on podcasts. There's about 1 billion podcasts about social media and how to do it. But I really like to talk to people who are doing it well and talk a little bit about literally what is your process? Like how did you get started in social media and how do you manage all of those pieces?
Well, I was actually one of the people who was quite resistant to social media at first. My thought process was, why does everybody care about what I'm doing?
Yeah.
But what I found was that I was really interested in what other people were doing. So I started reaching out to people who I'd met and bringing them on as friends and just noticing how much I enjoyed staying connected with them, learning things about their life that I might not be able to learn otherwise because they live in one place and I live in another. And it finally just dawned on me that we're all just very interested in one another's lives and how we're living, how we're creating businesses, what our relationships are like, what we like to eat, where we like to go on vacation. And so I just decided to start sharing what was going on with me. And it's amazing how that's really all that it takes. There doesn't need to be some grandiose strategy, and you don't have to talk about how fabulous your life is all the time. Tell people the truth about what's going on with you, and they love to hear about it.
That's simple, right?
Yep.
Get over yourself and start talking.
Yep.
Well, and I always think it's interesting as I don't want to digress into social media too much. It's a common topic on pretty much every podcast out there. But one of the things I've always found interesting is people they think of it as this marketing tool. They're like, okay, how do I use it to market my business? And so they approach it in a way that really isn't conducive to what the tool is. I mean, social media at its core is a relationship building tool. And,
Yes.
Good marketing is relationship building, really, truly. But I think people come at it from this is my business, this is a marketing tool, and that's kind of where they get tripped up. But it's really a great follow-up and a great kind of customer service tool if you know what you're doing correctly.
Yeah, I'm with you. And when people approach it from that marketing angle, we can all feel it. We're all so tired of being marketed to. We really just want to connect with people authentically.
Agreed. And I can smell on social media, like, and there's, I'm excited to hear about your move to Phoenix and your move to Scottsdale and what that's going to be. But I think there's a couple of people I know that I follow that when they're posting things clearly designed to invoke people talking about it, and not in a genuine way, but in a, hey, I know this is going to drive up my social media numbers. And to me, it's like, God, am I good at communication and I can smell this, or is this just like, are other people feeling the same way? And I think from what I have found, those people don't last long. They're on social media, they get kind of a flash in the pan and they disappear. So I think the brief answer is other people can tell too when you're just trying to use social media to instigate things, to be a conversation starter versus really caring about the people that you're connected with.
Yeah, I would agree with you.
Yeah, wonderful. So talk to me a little, are you a multi-platform person? Do you tweet? Are you on, or do you just kind of stick with one platform?
You know, I tend to focus my efforts on Facebook, but I also have a Tumblr page. I have a Twitter account. I put beautiful things that I find on Pinterest. But if you really want to know about me and my personal life and what's going on with me, it's definitely Facebook.
Facebook. And is that because that was the tool that you used, or how did you decide Facebook was going to be where you focused?
You know, it's funny. Facebook just happened to be the easiest for me to do. I didn't have to think about keeping my message to a certain number of characters. I didn't have to worry about whether it was just text or whether it was visual. It seemed to be the most conducive to just throwing out whatever I had.
Yeah, and I have to think about it. Well, wonderful. So let's get back to you and your business and a little bit of a story. So how does one make a jump from an anthropologist to a business owner? So talk to me a little bit about that transition and how it came about.
Yeah, so in college I studied to become an anthropologist, and when it came time for me to graduate, I was told that there were 3 jobs that were available to me. One was to continue on and go into academics. 2 was to go dig out in the dirt like an archaeologist. Or 3 was to work with dead bodies in police situations. And Kristen, you've met me. I'm a real girly girl, and so none of those careers applied to me. So I decided that I was going to set aside my anthropology and archaeology skills for a while because I couldn't see my way to using them. I believed people when they said, you know, these are the jobs you can do, and if you don't want to do those, you can't play the game.
Yeah.
And so I set that aside for a while, and I had another business that I did before this. I actually had a mobile yoga studio for a number of years. And at some point, I just felt like, you know what, there's something more. And so I started looking for that something more. And in that process, I remembered that I had this amazing set of skills as an anthropologist and archaeologist, and that it's not actually very common. And finally, I just discovered that, you know what, you can look at anything as if it is a collection of treasures and interpret it. It doesn't have to be something from a civilization that's long gone. And certainly we have people who are working on modern culture, but nobody really looks at modern artifacts. And so that was sort of the unique thing that I did, as I look at things that are modern, collections of items that are being updated all the time. You know, we're always pulling things in and out of our bags. And I was able to make it really fun and intriguing by applying this specifically to handbags. And the thing I love most about going through women's handbags is, I'm sure you know this as a mom, that's sometimes the only personal space a woman has. Everybody in the family is pretty much trained, don't go into mom's purse. And so it's the most representative item that I found that women have, where they really have the most exclusive choice over what goes in and what comes out of it.
Very cool. So it sounds like you started off in a place where you figured out, you said, all right, what are my skills and what is it that I can bring to the table? Then you looked and said, how can I make this applicable to today's market?
Yes.
How do you monetize that, or how did you translate that into a business strategy?
Well, at first I didn't monetize it. At first I was just doing research, asking any woman who would let me to look through her bag. And then at
Walking
one
up and down
point,
the street asking people to open their bag for you, but that
kind
went
of
over.
like that, yeah, sitting next to people. And it was interesting at first, you know, you're asking to look through something that's very personal of somebody's, and it felt a little bit weird to be like, hey, can I look through your
Look
purse?
at your purse. Yeah. Can I look in your purse and tell you who you are?
Exactly, right. Yeah, and that to some people was a little bit threatening. But to many women, they were excited to learn more about themselves. And so I realized at some point that I could tell people something about themselves as it related to their business, and I could give them insight into what was keeping them from performing at the level that they knew they were capable of performing. And so when I realized that I had a unique insight that nobody else could give someone, that's when I was able to monetize it. So I was able to help people see that here's this process, here's this question that you have, and by engaging with me in this process, I can give you a result. So that's how I was able to start collecting money for it.
Very cool. So you kind of work as a coach, helping people through business challenges that they're coming on, and mainly women?
Yes, absolutely. Women are my target market. Usually women who have been at their business for a while and are thinking, you know, I've gotten to this certain level, but there's this ceiling here and I don't know what it is, and they feel like they're banging their head against the wall.
Yeah.
I can show them what that thing is like that just by looking through their bag, because your handbag is a microcosm of the macrocosm of your entire life and thought process, whether it's in your relationships, your business. I can even tell you why you're putting certain things in your mouth by looking at your bag.
Yeah. So not to give the cow away for free or anything, but what would you say is the most common obstacle that you've come across working with women business owners that they're consistently running up against?
Well, the thing that I find most often actually is simply women are hiding.
Okay. How so?
Well, my favorite process personality profile is the Vanishing Veronica, because she really represents this idea of hiding. So I meet women who are Vanishing Veronica, and I like to liken Vanishing Veronica to Superman, trying to pass as Clark Kent during the day, but actually, you know, having this amazing set of superpowers. So I find women who are trying to do a business that maybe is a little bit different than what they were trained to do or what they have many years of experience doing, and they've sort of cut that part of themselves off from who they are and who they're trying to present themselves as now, rather than carrying that forward. And I find that it just leaves them in this place where they're constantly trying to hide this other part of them because they're trying to present themselves in this new particular way.
All right. So you cut out a little bit, but I think I got the gist there. So it's kind of women tend to leave their unique skill set or what they can bring to the table in the background, or they don't tend to promote that.
They don't promote it, and they don't allow themselves to bring all of their skills to the table.
Interesting. Well, and that totally makes sense. And the challenge then is businesses that are successful are the ones that have the most unique message, that really have the clearest understanding of what it is that they're bringing to their clients. And so without bringing that to the forefront, and I found that many women that are successful, and to add on to what you're saying, the reason they're successful is because they've got some sort of close audience. They've got, you know, they can network, they've got people that are willing to hire them because they know themselves, but there's only so far that's going to take you. Your network goes to a certain degree. Getting past that, you know, we all know someone who's going to hire us. How do you past that, and how do you expand past that? And if you can't identify what makes you unique, and if you can't identify what is your skill set, then that's pretty much where you're going to go.
Yeah, and if you're not willing to look at everything that you're able to do, even you're not going to ever find that unique thing.
Well, and in marketing, that's one of the bigger challenges that you always consistently see is someone, you know, you say, write a blog to highlight your expertise. You know, and I know that you're connected with Sarah Korn, who's a fabulous blogger, and I think this is one of her skill sets, you know, in meeting with her, is that she understands that women don't know their expertise. Well, what do I have to say? How am I an expert? You're right. If you're running a business, you're probably really good at something, and maybe you just don't know it yet. And so your process kind of helps identify people, have people identify what that is and kind of bring that to the forefront.
Yeah.
So, very cool. So talk to me. I know that you're also a speaker and that you're kind of all, I mean, like I said, you're a media fiend. I'm thoroughly impressed with what I've seen. So talk to me about your speaking career. And I know a lot of people have that on their list. They say, oh, I want to do speaking engagements. I want to get out there. How have you started that process, and what has that been like?
You know, it's interesting. The first time I spoke in front of anyone, it was actually in Phoenix, and it was on stage at an event called Thrive. And I was so afraid. I was literally shaking as I was standing up there trying to share my process with people. But I thought, you know what, this is a great opportunity. I want to find out if this is something that I'm able to do. I just needed to get out of my own way as far as the fear of getting up in front of people. So I did it, and people loved it. And I thought, wow, you know, there are so many people who are so afraid to get up and speak in front of people, including me. So if I can learn to overcome my fear of being in front of people, that's going to put me ahead of the pack just like that, without a whole lot of work. Just being somebody who's willing to speak puts you in a small percentage of the population. And from there, word just kind of spread. People really love my process. It's very visual. And so when somebody hears about what I do, I tend to get invited to come share it. So it's been really interesting. The opportunities that I've had to be on TV and on radio and speak on stages haven't come because I went knocking on doors. They've come through word of mouth, which is, for somebody who's an introvert like me, is awesome, because I don't really like to go out and sell myself.
Yeah. Well, and you hit the nail on the head in terms of when people ask, you know, how do I get to speak? Well, people are, you know, I ask people to speak, and I always, what is your topic? And it seems like you've identified a really unique visual topic. And so the process of going out and who do you talk to and things like that isn't as important really as figuring out what it is that is unique that brings you to the table. And if you can find something that has a hook, you know, and the same rule applies for PR, right? If you can find something that has a hook that's interesting, that's not, you know, I want to help women expand their business. Okay. You know, like I started a coaching business. Okay. You and, you know, 200 other women today, you know, how you have to have what is unique about it. And I think that sometimes we try, when we're thinking about how do I get to a larger audience, people tend to go more generic. So they go, you know, what is the rule that could apply to everybody, versus really narrowing in and saying, nope, what is it about me that I can do that is the most unique, that's going to stand out? And once you identify, and it sounds like you're great at staying targeted on that message. I am the purse process. That message kind of first, and the rest of it people figure out. You don't feel like you have to explain, and I'm a speaker, and I'm a coach, and I, you know, and I do all of these other things. You say, hey, I'm the purse process. So how did you get, I mean, is that something, this skill set of being unique and focusing in on that, is that something that you have cognitively chosen to do, or is that just kind of a natural piece for you?
Well, I am a natural innovator, for sure. And
see, but innovators usually suffer from bright, shiny object syndrome.
You know,
so how did you keep your innovation so focused?
So this is a great question, Kristen, because as I developed the purse process, I got to a certain point where I was like, oh, I'm master of that. I don't want to do that anymore. I'm ready to do something else. And fortunately, at the time, I was working with a business coach, and she sort of took me by the shoulders and looked into my eyes and said, Danielle, you just need to stay with this for a little while. And so I gave that some consideration, and I thought about how things had happened in my life, and I looked back at my previous business and my my mobile yoga studio, and I thought, you know what, there really is something to having mastery, because I had mastered that business, I had mastered that practice. And I thought, yes, the purse process is something that at that point I knew how to do, and I was kind of ready to discard it as, you know, another shiny object I'd played with, and I was done. But she was able to get me to recognize that to become the master of the purse process universe, there was something worth doing in that. And so I decided that I would stick with it. And as I became more masterful at doing it, I mean, I could do it in my sleep. I could do it with 3 martinis in me. It is just part of who I am and what I do. There's a lot of freedom in that, because once you are really master of your tools, you can use them in so many unique ways that you can't use something that you've just sort of created and played with.
Very cool. Very cool. So you're moving to Scottsdale. Talk to me about what has sponsored that move. I mean, you're not you know, why Scottsdale, and why the transition?
Okay, well, Scottsdale is an awesome place. There are people like you. I have met so many amazing women. The place is so well networked. You can't beat the weather. You guys have great food. And I'm also going because I want to explore what it would be like to just live somewhere simply because I want to. Not because that's where most of my business is, not because it makes the most sense, not because it's the most inexpensive place to live, simply because I feel at home there.
Cool. And how did you discover Scottsdale? You said that your first speaking engagement was out here. Was that just, it happened to be out here, and you think that's kind of where the universe led you?
You know, the first speaking engagement did happen to be out there, and then I chose to come back a couple of months later because it was freezing cold out here on the East Coast. So
you were like, I'm cold. Where's someplace hot I can go? Phoenix. That's it.
Exactly. Done. And I did, and then I ended up getting an opportunity while I was there, and then I came home, and then another opportunity brought me back, and I came home, and then another, and it just seemed like, you know what, I keep getting drawn back to this place. Every time I land at this airport, I feel like I'm home. There's got to be something to this. And my business is mobile. I can do it from anywhere. I know I'm going to continue my purse process on tour, so why not just make that my home base?
Very cool. Well, congratulations. That's exciting. And do you have like a strategy for, I know that you're already fairly well networked over here. I mean, for people who are thinking about moving, have you thought through what it looks like to transition a business? Like you said, it's fairly mobile, but have you put together any ideas on how you're going to execute that?
You know, I'm one of those people who I make an in-the-moment decision. So it's whatever is right in front of me. So right now I just know that I need to go there, and the how of it will unfold as I'm there. But I have no doubt that it's going to be an interesting experience, to say the least. Uh-oh, looks like you froze.
Very cool.
Oh, there we go.
There you go.
I'm not getting any audio, so if you're asking me a question, I can't hear you.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. I hear you now.
Oops.
Oh, no.
What?
Sorry, no audio.
Enable due to slow connection. Danielle?
There we go. I can hear you now.
Right. Well, we'll just go ahead.
Oh, you're gone again.